Thanks for that, Jeremy. So what Jeremy just did is he kind of set the scene for what we mean by converged systems. I'm going to talk just a little bit about integration with Pure, then Andy's going to take over and give an introduction to Pure, and I'm going to go into PureFlex in detail, into the chassis and the like. Andy's going to cover the Pure application server, and then we'll talk about some of the management things and a little bit about positioning. With that said, Andy, if you can just go to this slide for me, please. So this is what we're basically living with. I happen to particularly like this picture, but I feel like when I was an IT manager, I had people coming at me from all directions. And at some times I felt like several days hit me at once. Where we really want to be is what you'll see in the next slide, which is a person who's basically relaxed with their feet up. And the only way to get there is to simplify things. One of our biggest challenges right now is how complex our environments are. Okay, so in the next slide you'll see this is pretty much where the IT managers are. When you're complex, you basically have fear, frustration, exhaustion. People don't want to move. They don't want to change. And that makes life much more difficult. So what's really interesting is when you look at some of the consultant reports, and some of these are older, but they're all basically having the same issue. If I look at what Gartner says, everybody's moving away from Unix. They're going to Linux and Windows on Intel. If I look at Computer World, they're basically saying 90% of people are reliant on Unix and only 12% plan to migrate from Unix. If I look at Gabriel Consulting Group, Unix is the backbone, Unix is strategic. And even looking at 2010, 11, and 12, there's complete inconsistency with what the consultants are actually saying. The one thing that they do agree on is that we are basically moving from being process-centric, where we're concerned about business process, to being information-centric. That's pretty clear when we look at how much data is out there. You all have, I'm sure, a lot of projects around business intelligence, how we process data, and this is where you see with the Pure systems that the pattern-based action comes in. Because if we actually know that certain types of data can be analyzed in certain ways, we can more quickly deploy things by bringing in pattern-based systems. So information-centric is pretty important. This is part of the IBM messaging where we talk about what are the pressures and realities. We've got business demands, the needs for mobility, social business. If you think about your own companies, how many of them are now having separate social media things where they're going out, they've got Facebook, a significant number of examples where things like Facebook that we thought were just pure social media for chatting are basically now being used to conduct business and to get people interested in companies. And then we have IT, who's supposed to deliver all this stuff and to provide the backbone. And that just puts a lot of pressure on the different IT departments. And we can't carry on doing custom systems, and that's really what this is all about. What Pure is all about is we have to stop taking these 90 to 270 days to get something out there. It's all about IT agility. And that's the message that we're getting pretty heavily as IT, and that Foresight is getting as a integrator, that we need to make sure that we focus on things like agility and how we get things up and running faster. So how do we survive all of this? And really the key components are convergence, simplification, virtualization. You can't have, for instance, cloud or any of these functions without virtualization. You can't have them without things like delegation of authority. And basically everybody wants everything on demand. So the key is going to be right-sizing and management software that basically helps us get there, along with a roadmap for both hardware and software that basically says, okay, we can get from A to B, and by the way, in 2017 it'll still be working. So I threw this slide in because last year cloud was the big buzzword. Everybody was going to cloud. If they couldn't handle something, they were going to go to cloud. And one of the things you'll see is that the Pure systems that we're about to talk about will position you very nicely for cloud, but there's a lot of structure that has to go around cloud in order for cloud to be functional. And so what I'm going to do now is pass over to Andy and have Andy talk to you a little bit about some of the things around Pure and then we'll go into the more technical meat of the actual system.